Horses biting is a very serious issue. It's not something to play around with. It's very dangerous and it can be life-threatening. And for that reason, I have to say that if you choose to use or not use any or all of what I show you or say to you in this video, that you're doing so at your own risk. I can't see your horse's level of training. I can't see your level of training. I can't see the situation. I can't see the expression on the horse. I can't see the warnings and signals that the horse is giving. I can't see what's going on around in the environment. So I can't give you specifics. I can't say, well, your horse is biting, so go out and do A, B, and C, and it will work. There are too many variables that I can't see. So please, if you use any or all of what I tell you or show you, then do so at your own risk. If you are in any way uncertain of what you're doing, don't do it. Get professional help and always be safe. Don't put yourself in jeopardy. Step away from the situation, reevaluate it, and get help. Someone recently asked me if I could go over the warning signs that a horse gives before they're going to bite. I can give you a rundown of the different signs that horses typically give before they're going to bite, but I can't tell you which ones they're going to use and in what order they're going to use them. It'll depend on the situation and also on the personality of the horse. If you look, for example, at people, when a person gets angry, they might react differently than another person. Say one person, when they get angry, they'll look at you and they'll glare at you and go, why the hell did you do that? And another one might start right out yelling at you. Another one might bang the wall. A young child might stomp their feet and throw a temper tantrum. It's the same with horses. Horses will react differently to different things, and the degree to which they react to something will vary from horse to horse, and it'll vary from situation to situation. Like my horse, he'll give you many warnings before he actually follows through and does something. Another horse might not give many warnings at all, or they might be very quick. One horse might take a long length of time, giving you several opportunities to straighten your act out and do something different, and another one might give you one warning and think that's enough. I think the biggest indicator that a horse may bite would be if the horse has bitten before. If the horse has bitten before, then it would be safe to assume that it may bite again. And if the horse has bitten many times in the past, it may give less warnings before it bites again. So knowing a horse's history is very helpful to you. If it's not your horse and you're not familiar with it, you should always ask questions about it before you do any kind of interaction with it. You wouldn't walk up to a big Rottweiler on the street and then just reach out and pet it without first asking the owner if it would be safe to do so. And you shouldn't do that with a horse. Before you interact with a horse, you should ask the owner if there's anything about the horse that you should know. Ask if it bites. Ask if it has an aggressive behavior that it tends to like to use before you interact with that horse. And hopefully the owner would be honest and tell you. A horse that's biting you because it's trying to play with you is probably the hardest one to see the warning signs. Sometimes it's more helpful to figure out why a horse is biting than to concentrate solely on the signals that a horse gives you. One of those situations is when a horse is play biting. When a horse is play biting, it doesn't really see the need to give you a warning per se that it's going to bite, because in its mind it's playing, and horses play rough. And if it hasn't been taught that it can't play rough with people, then it'll try to play with people the same way that it plays with a horse. In the horse's mind, his nipping the air at you in that situation is similar to you picking up a golf ball, throwing it to your friend and going, come on, let's go play golf. In this situation with play biting, you're less likely to see a warning sign because, like I said, the horse doesn't see the need to give you a warning because it's playing. You wouldn't throw a ball to somebody and say, hey, I'm going to throw the ball. You have the ball in your hand and they see you with the ball and you figure you're pulling your arm back and letting the ball go is enough warning for them that you're going to throw the ball to them. It's the same way with a horse that's play biting. they might do the same thing. The warning that the horse is going to bite in a play situation is like this usually. And so that's a dangerous situation. But if you realize that you have a horse that's play biting, you need to do a couple of things. You need to teach that horse that there are certain boundaries. And you can do this without being harsh or cruel to the horse. And the other thing you need to do is make sure that the horse has enough activities where it's able to bite. Like my horse likes to play with a partially deflated basketball. He'll take that and he'll grab onto it and shake it and bite it. And you can give the horse toys like that. He has dog toys too in there that he plays with. He has a ball on a rope and some squeaky dog toys that he plays with. And also they should be able to interact with other horses where they have the opportunity to play rough like they generally play. And if they have these situations, they're less likely to want to have to play with you. But you should teach them the boundaries, that they're not allowed to do that. And many times blocking them or a simple no is enough. They just don't realize that they can't do it with you or they shouldn't do it with you. They're not trying to be mean, they're not trying to be disrespectful, they're actually trying to include you in their play. They just don't realize that it's maybe not safe for them to do that with you even. So many times I hear trainers say that when a horse is being aggressive that you need to one-up that horse. You need to take over. You need to be in control. You need to be more of the boss. You need to be more dominating, more in control. Well, I approach it the exact opposite. Now, if you are in a situation with a horse and it's being aggressive with you, say it's pawing at you, it's threatening to rear, and it's taking some nips at the air, if you were to try and use more force in that situation, more dominance, more control, you would be starting a war with that horse. And sure, one of you would win. And the outcome might be that you end up being top dog, but you're going to do a lot of damage. If you're in that face-off situation with that horse and it's safe to do so, and you back away and you walk away, sure, that horse in that instance is going to think he won maybe, but unless you do that every day or every time you go out there, it's not going to create a pattern where the horse is is thinking that he can do that consistently and get away with it. If the horse has done it once and you back off and you get away from them and then you go and you reevaluate it by your own self where you're calm and quiet and not in the middle of it all, you can actually put together some lessons that will help the horse go through that, and you'll resolve the situation with the horse without starting a war with it, without one of you having to be the winner. And I'm going to show you the example of what I did with this horse with the face-off. This horse actually, when he was young, had a biting problem and he liked to face off. And the face-off is something that gives people a lot of trouble. So I'm going to start off with the face-off and that problem and how I addressed that problem with this horse. I don't have a video clip of an actual face-off, but if you watch this next clip where my horse cuts me off, it's very similar to a face-off. He cut me off, but instead of turning and facing off with me, he just stood sideways. A horse would do the same thing if it was facing off, except it would come and face you. A more challenging position than just cutting you off. Can you back up a little bit? That was a little bit of a cutoff, I think. Was that a cutoff? I think that was a cutoff. You need to back up. Yeah, I think so. I need to walk up. You end up with a face-off when you're leading a horse when you stop and the horse keeps going. Oh. You stop and the horse just keeps going out in front of you and faces you. So the way to avoid the face-off is when you cue the whoa, you keep moving until the horse stops. The horse should stop before you stop, and then he can't come out in front of you. You need to keep up the pace with him. If he's going fast, you need to go as fast as he's going. Down. Don't encourage him to keep moving, but you need to keep moving until he's completely stopped, and in that way he can't come out in front of you and face off with you. See, this is where you get the face off. When I say whoa, he's going to whoa. Whoa. But the horse is going to face off in front of you. It's going to just continue and go out around in front of you. So to stop that, you keep going until he stops. Horses that face off usually will also push into a person's space when they're leading with their nose or their full head or their head and neck, and that should be considered a threat to bite or a threat to nip. If you have a horse that's doing this, you should correct it before it gets to nipping. Always block with a straight arm, never a bent elbow. You should block him out like that. Oh. Chap just woke up. He's all covered in shavings. The problem that Chap had with facing off was when the vet would come. He was petrified of shots, so he didn't want anybody near his neck. So when you would approach him, he would dodge back and forth and not let you go past the front of his face because he didn't want you by his neck. And if you kept pushing the issue, he'd try to start nipping at you, pawing at you, maybe do a little couple pickups of his front feet. To show you what I did to get around that, I actually used food reward training, something that most people wouldn't try to use with a horse when it's nipping, because they're of the opinion that food makes a horse nip and bite, and it's not the food, it's really boundary issues. And people that tell you to eliminate the snacks and treats and so forth because the horse is nipping only do so because they don't really know how to fix the problem. To teach him to stop the face-off, I used hay stretch pellets. I put some in my hand, and I walked up to him, and I gave them to him as a distraction. Turned, I blocked the face, and I was at his neck. And then I did various different things at his neck that weren't related to the shots. He's taught to put his head down if I tap his neck. And after a while, what I did was I would walk up to him, put my hand on his face, block his face, come back and touch his neck without giving him a snack. I just pet him. But see, I used the snack to divert his attention away from what was going on. And I had to do it many times to get it ingrained in his mind that just because I was going past him, I wasn't going to give him a shot or do something funky with his neck. All right, we'll do this at a different angle. We'll do this at a different angle. Walk up, give the treat, turn to the side, block, and you're past him. You just keep doing that over and over again. Retreat, block, and you're past him. Now when you block a horse, you tend to not want to be near his mouth. But that's actually probably the better place to be. And it's rather dangerous, but if you block up here, he can still get around you. If you block down here, close to the mouth, he can't more easily get around you. He thinks I want him to put his head away. But you can see where blocking down here is better than blocking him up here, because he can still twist around you if you block up too high. While I'm talking about the face-off, I'm going to talk about approaching a horse. Many times I see trainers say that you should go out and around and come into the shoulder of the horse with your head down and not approach them face on. I tend to like to look and see how the horse behaves with the other horses or how it behaves towards me to see what way it prefers me to approach it. Some horses prefer you to approach them face on. This horse much prefers you to be face on with him. And it's okay to approach a horse face on. These trainers will tell you that the reason why they don't want you to approach a horse face on is so that you don't appear to be a predator. Well, I would challenge them to tell me what natural predator to a horse walks up to the front of a horse and says hello to it before it eats it. In actuality, every natural predator to a horse comes up behind it, or up to its side, or up to its shoulder. The cougar, for example, might leap up onto a horse's back and pin its neck and claw at its underside while it's digging into the back of its neck. A wild pack of dogs might run up to the back of it and disable a leg and try to bring it back down that way. You see, lions will take down a zebra. Similar. They all come up from the rear or the side. They don't come up to the face of the horse and challenge the horse. The horse has many options coming up to the front of it and challenging it like that. So a lot of horses feel safer with you coming up to the front of them, especially because they can use that evasive maneuver of dodging back and forth and not letting you get past the front of them. They can paw at you, they can rear, they can dodge back and forth and reach out and bite you. Now that said, I would say that when you walk up to the front of a horse, you should walk up to them relaxed, calm, without the intent of anger or any intent really whatsoever other than to say hello to the horse and greet the horse and start off what you're going to do. You should always have slightly bended knees in case you need to flex and get away from a horse fast. If you have straight knees like this where they're kind of locked in place, it takes you a little bit longer to move and get away and you can stumble. You're a good boy. You're a good Obi. Look at you. Look at you. Just good boy. Of course, knowing all the other different things like put his head down, being able to control him. Good boy. Back up. Good boy. Nice job, oh. Nice job. Let me have your foot. Yeah. The more ways that you can control the horse and show him that you can control him, the better you're going to be able to control the biting issue as well. That's a good job. He does good work, Obi does. Obi does good work. Yes, he does. Another sign that a horse is going to bite is that they'll pin their ears back. Some people have a problem with seeing this as a sign of biting because horses normally put their ears back in other different circumstances. Like when a horse puts its head down, you'll see them put their ears back slightly. If they reach their head out and down, they'll put their ears back. If a horse is backing up, they'll put their ears back. And the difference between a horse pinning his ears and putting his ears, it's all right, and putting his ears back to back up or put his head down or to reach out is that they're set when he pins them back. When a horse is backing up, if you make some kind of movement or gesture that catches the horse's attention, they'll flick an ear towards you. Where if they're pinned, they're absolutely back and they're not going to flick towards you for any kind of distraction. You are trying out all kinds of behaviors behind me. He says, I'm even going to try backing up. Maybe she'll give me a treat, huh? You're such a goober. You're such a goober. Right. The other thing with a horse pinning his ears is that you'll see other things going on in the face and the body of the horse. They'll be doing something else besides pinning their ears. Their face will look very firm usually. The eyes will be intense. The nostrils will be intense. They won't be relaxed. They'll be tight. The mouth might be tight. If you see the corners of the mouth twitching with the mouth tight, then you're in extreme danger and should get out of there whenever it's safe to do so.
Bobby.
That's a good boy. That's a good boy. I'm going to provoke my little gentle giant here into doing a tail snap to show you what one looks like. When a horse snaps its tail, it's usually some form of a warning or an indicator that the horse is annoyed, and very likely something else will follow it if things don't change. It's a warning that they want you to stop or do something different. The smallest amount of a tail snap you'll see is when a horse is shooing flies, that little tiny flick of the tail. The snap he'll probably do is probably about almost 3/4 of a full-blown tail snap. I'd have to do something pretty mean to him, and I'm not going to do that to get him to really snap his tail. Sometimes you'll see when a horse snaps its tail that it'll also stomp a foot. It'll generally pin its ears back to some degree. And when you look at the pinned ears, the snap of the tail, the foot stomping, or whatever else is going on, you can determine at what level that horse is warning. Now we know why this horse snapped his tail like that. I climbed up on the fence and reached over and rubbed a little bit on that bone in his hip there until it annoyed him enough to snap his tail. And he did it once. A horse may snap its tail more than once, may continue to snap its tail. If you don't know why a horse is snapping his tail or stomping his foot and snapping his tail or snapping his tail and pinning his ears, if you don't know why, you should step away from the situation. You should remove yourself from the situation. You should not try to control that animal. Horses tend to pick their favorite evasive tactics. This horse's favorite evasive tactic is to be face-on with you and do things like paw, bite, rear, those type of things, very upfront. Other horses might try kicking or pushing into you or something of a different nature. But because a horse has a preferred method doesn't mean they won't try the others. Like a horse that likes to bite could bite you and then turn around and kick you. But you can prepare because you can judge that more likely they're going to try their favorite option if it's available to them. Notice the softness of his eye. He actually looks pretty lazy, like he might go to sleep after he gets done eating here. The whole face looks kind of lazy. He's just munching away. The muscles in his neck aren't taut. His ears are flicking when he hears a noise, so they're not set. I'm going to show you some different pictures of different facial expressions in the eyes and the ears and so forth. That's why I'm showing you this right here. And we're going to compare them to what he looks like right now. Notice the looseness of the ears. And quiet calm. In this next picture, notice the white rim around the horse's eye. Notice that his head is up. This is exactly what he's doing. He's alarmed about something that he's being shown. You're getting that. Now in this next picture, I'm going to be a little sneaky about this. The horse has a fly mask on. This picture was taken a couple years ago, but we're going to stick it in here because it's got some value here. Look at him and try for a minute to think about what you think that horse is expressing without seeing its eyes. That horse is also slightly alarmed. He's also doing that. His ears are forward, and how far they're forward, he's not as alarmed as he was with the one with the rims, but you notice his nostrils are somewhat tight, and you'll see the muscles in his neck are not relaxed. So there is some amount of in that picture. even though you can't see his eyes and you can't really see his ears clearly, you can see that by other things in the picture. Can you back up a little bit? That was a little bit of a cutoff, I think. Was that a cutoff? I think that was a cutoff. We need to back up. Yeah, I think so. I think that was a cutoff. I think that was a cutoff. I want to point something out very quickly with this example of him cutting me off like this. I want you to notice that I didn't reprimand him. I didn't make him do work because he did the wrong thing. Yeah, this is where you need to really understand why a horse is doing something. When I went out there, I gave him a cookie. When I walked away from him, he ran around in front of me and cut me off, and what he was saying was, "I'd like another cookie." And keep in mind that a horse has a cognitive ability of a 2 or 3-year-old child. So imagine that you're in the house and you give a young child a cookie, and then you walk outside and you're walking down the steps heading towards the mailbox, and the kid comes flying out, runs around in front of you and goes, "Can I have another cookie?" And they're all excited. That's what this horse did. Just as with the child doesn't mean any harm by it. It doesn't mean anything bad. It's not being disrespectful, and the horse isn't either. Both the child and the horse are excited and they want another cookie. And that's why I didn't reprimand the horse. In the instance with the child, I might say to the child, "All right, come to the mailbox with me and get the mail, help me get the mail, and then I'll get you a cookie." And in the situation with the horse, I had him back up, something that's opposite of the cutoff, but I didn't do it in a way that it was a reprimand or that it was work. I had him back up and then I gave him a cookie, and then I had him back up again and get a cookie. I reinforced who was in charge without putting any punishment on it. I try not to go overboard with correction. I try to do the minimum that's required. And I try to understand what's going on in the situation, what the horse might be thinking, what its intentions might be. And also, I try not to draw attention to negative things. Like in this situation with the cutoff, if I were to identify it as something that was really bad, then that also is identified to the horse as something that would be used to push my buttons, so to speak.